Namaste. Welcome to the beginning of another live Saṅgha. I'm grateful to be here. I trust you are feeling as well as you can in this moment, regardless of whatever circumstances you may be facing in life. If there's any difficult feelings, please know that they too shall pass. And I welcome space if anyone ever wants to share how they are feeling. Oh, and thank you, Neon Jello Pack, for a heart me. You're very quick with that. Blessing our Saṅgha. Starting off with such a generous gift. Jaya Satchit Ananda. I'd like to set the intentions for this space as being a welcoming environment, open to everyone, regardless of background, identity, orientation, belief system, ethnicity, whatever. May we come together as fellow students of life to uplift each other, relate in one another's experiences, and share positive sentiments. Yes, greetings, Isabella. How are you, Neon Jello Pack? Hello, Kitas. Hello, dear Riri. Glad to have you here too. Allow me to also begin with an invocation of a Shanti mantra from the Taittiriya and Katha Upanishads, which goes like this. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Garva Vahai Tejasvina Vadhitamastu Ma Vidvisha Vahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. That translates to, may the divine protect us both together. May the divine nourish us both together. May our studies be vigorous and effective. And may we not mutually dispute or hate any. May there be peace in us. May there be peace in our environment. And may there be peace in the forces that act on us. Good evening, dear Al. Hello up the freeway. And I see you, and I feel you, dear Liren Starseed. I wish you well. Radhe, Radhe, dearest Miananda. Hello, spider enthusiast. Hello, Emily. Hello, Aira. Now, thank you, Aira, for the heart me that you had sent. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hello, Goofy Goosey. And thank you up the freeway for the heart me that you had sent too. Om Ganganapataye Namaha. Isabella, thank you for the heart me you sent as well. Om Shri Mahalakshmi Namah. Hello, dear Anne. Thank you, Isabella, for your heart me. Thank you for sharing the live, Al, and dearest Goofy Goosey. I'm wondering how you are all feeling at this moment. If you want to share, of course, nobody is ever expected to. But knowing what kind of space to hold, be happy to do so. Holding space for the concept of surrender is something that our Telegram group chat recommended for today's Saṅgha. And another recommendation was the topic of being present, which I think are very complementary ideas. Being present and surrendering, because what are we ultimately surrendering? There's a lot of talk of letting go and attachments and desires and surrender in spiritual communities generally. One perspective that I feel is really helpful with that is what is taught by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, that ancient text. Krishna puts it very simply, that all we have to let go of is attachment to some outcome in the future. That if we diligently do everything that we can to attend to this moment, then the future in the hands of the divine will take care of itself. Shri Hasya Chitrakara, you like the way I'm wearing my hair today. Well, thank you. I never plan on the way I wear my hair. Just kind of, there's just so much of it that I think there's so many permutations and combinations. We go through them every day, naturally. You're feeling pleasant, Isabella. I'm happy to hear that. Hello, dear Stevie G. That is a correct mantra. Om Namo Yamaya, shares Stevie G. That means salutations to the Lord of Death. Because Yama is the Lord of Death. Which he's a good guy, actually. It's okay to say salutations to him. He is who taught Nachiketa how to achieve moksha, liberation. Oh, thank you, Third Eye Jedi. Jedi, my goodness, Jedi. Happy to be here for you. Well, you might be noticing the fact that I shaved yesterday. So I think I'm looking more feminine today, which I don't particularly mind at all. In fact, I embrace it. Namaskar, dear John Tyler, and thank you for the heart, mate. Om Hrim Namah Shakti Shivaya. Thank you, John Simon, for the heart me you sent. Radhe Radhe Tattvam Asi. Thank you for your quintet of roses. Om Mani Padme Hum. And Danny, thank you for your heart me too. Om Bhram Bhairvaya Namo Namah. Well, I am not the Lord of Death, dear Stella. My name, Yam, happens to come from a different place. I am not named after Yama Raja. But I like to think that there is a synchronicity with Sanskrit because Yam is the mantra for the heart chakra too. Pronounced Yam. Dear Kelly, speaking of which, you ask, what are the 7 vibrational words you make for your chakras? Every chakra has a corresponding bija, which is called a seed syllable. In fact, it's said that everything in creation has a seed syllable because the yogis, they really believed in sound as being the source of existence. There are main mantras for each of the chakras, and there's also sub-mantras for each of the chakras. There's 50 mantras in total, because there's 50 sounds in Sanskrit. The first 5, the main mantras for the first 5 chakras, they correspond to the approximates that you can make in your mouth. Starting with the root, which is the element of earth, corresponding to the approximant in the dental region, that's Rlam. It's a vibrating L, and it transitions into an anuswara, a nasalized sound. All of them transition into a nasalized sound. Going up to the Swadhisthana chakra, the root's called the Muladhara, which literally means the root of our foundation. The Swadhisthana, its element is water. That corresponds to our labial region of our mouth. And so the labial approximant, woo, woo, like a vibrating W, is its Bija mantra. Going up to the solar plexus chakra, the Manipura, the city of jewels. That corresponds to the element of fire and the retroflex position of our tongue. It's a rolled R. And then, as I said, in the heart, the Anahata Nada chakra. It is the element of air, which corresponds to the palatal region of our mouth. And then finally with our throat, our Vishuddha chakra, that corresponds to the element of space. In the back of the throat, it's a guttural approximant. And then for our third eye, our Ajna chakra and our crown chakra, the Sahasrara chakra, it's the same. It's the Pranava. But the third eye and the crown, they differ in their sub-mantras. The third eye sub-mantras are all the vowels. Im, im, all 16. And then for the crown, there's infinite petals. That's why it's called the Sahasrara, the crown of 1,000 petals, but 1,000 just meaning very big. So all mantras are a sub-mantra for the crown chakra. There's an overview. Those are the mantras for the chakras. Hello, dear Jacqueline. Hello, Raven. Hello, Kyo. Hello, Jay. Hello, Danny. Hello, Maya. Hello, Eamon. Dear Wayne, you ask if I go to yoga. I don't go to yoga studios often unless someone invites me, but I did go to a kirtana at a yoga studio recently, and that was lovely. Yes, happy early Mahashivaratri, dear John Tyler. Om Namah Shivaya. We'll be ending our Saṅgha today with Gayatri mantra for Shiva. Hello, dear Lauren. I do like my malas, dear Bubbles G. I just love Rudraksha seeds. They're so lovely. But anyway, we have a Shravana section to go through. I invite everyone to listen with me as we go through another chapter of our book. It's okay if you haven't listened to other parts. If you did ever want to catch up, I post all of the recordings of these readings anyway. Dear blank cover plates, you share, you need a prayer that your blood pressure can go back down. It's up high. Well, that takes priority. Allow me to share a prayer with you. I pray that your cardiovascular system finds rest, and that your heart rate finds a rhythm that is healthy and steady for your body right now, and that you take care of your health as best you can mentally also, since our heart can often mirror what's going on in our mind, since it's said by ancient times that our mind, our emotional mind, resides in our heart. May you find relief from whatever stresses you, and then you can find relaxation in this moment. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Oh, I love those Bijas. Yes, dear Lord. Thank you, Bubbles G. This is the, I'm actually wearing two malas, my 1008 bead mala and my 54 bead mala. Much love, dear blank cover plates. Shuri Hasya Chitrakar, you ask if anyone else feels this today like particularly clear. I do feel that at this moment. Hello, Saint Martin. Glad to have you here, and I appreciated your email yesterday. I downloaded the app that you recommended, the Waking Up app, and I listened to the first introduction today. I look forward to going through them. It is usually 108 beads, P-Flomatics. But in the base 10 system of the yogis, they love powers of 10 plus 8. I know the significance for 108, but I don't know the significance for 1008, other than it's just adding a 0 in base 10. It's about 10 times as holy. No, just kidding. I just love the Rudraksha beads. You're feeling clear, enthusiast? Good. Thank you, Gina, for your pair of roses. I know you've been waiting for the Saṅgha, so I'm grateful to have you here. Hare Krishna. And P-Flomatics, thank you for your heart meme. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namah. Oh, and thank you, dear Franklin, for the heart me you sent to Rama Rama. P-Flomatics, you use your mala to meditate all the time and it works. I love using malas, yes. I'm happy to hear that. Stevie G, you feel a bit bored and a tiny bit depressed right now. What causes that? You're processing. And you're absolutely allowed to not feel like anything that you could do, something like you want to do right now. You are completely allowed to just have moments where you're just processing. I know psychologists tell us that it's really good actually to be bored. So this will pass. And I'm, of course, here for you, Stevie G. You can always message me anytime. Oh, and thank you for asking, Lauren. My mom is feeling better. Yeah. I had mentioned that my mom was on a swing. She was on a swing on the beach with my sister. They were taking pictures of the sunset. And the swing was made of a piece of driftwood. And when she was on it, the driftwood snapped in two. And my mom plummets like 3 or 4 feet to the ground, right in her tailbone. Fortunately, she's okay. It was hurting, but she checked somehow, and the bruise is actually not on the tailbone. It's like next to it, so I think she's okay. But I know that tailbone injuries can be pretty difficult, so if she's not feeling better soon, I'll definitely encourage her to go get that checked out. I fell on my tailbone before. I fell off a building, and then I actually cracked my L3 vertebrae. Ugh. Anyway, I don't want to go into that. Take care of your backs. You know, the yogis say that you're only as old as your spine. If you keep your spine nice and nimble, you'll be young even if you're 100 years old. Gravity makes a fool of us all one time or another. Well said, Bubbles G. Hello, dear Celine. Welcome, Joshua. And thank you, Anazek, for your heart, mate. Om Bharam Hanumate Namah. So, let's continue where we left off in the journey home, shall we? May this reading relax your mind and awaken your heart. Today we start the second chapter of the third act. We'll dive right into it. From Goa, I sailed back to Bombay and I began my return journey to the Himalayas. I traveled by train to Delhi and then northwest to the town of Pathankot, or maybe it's pronounced Pathankot. You'll have to tell me. Near the border of Jammu and Kashmir. From there I journeyed east on the back of a truck to the Himalayan town of Dharmasala in Himachal Pradesh. Many Indian city names or geography names. Summer was approaching and the forest was bursting with blooming flowers of orange, yellow, violet, and white. Huge ancient trees were cloaked in shining green leaves, and a constant buzz of wildlife energized the atmosphere. High on a mountain range above Dharmasala reigned Mikliad Ganja, a Tibetan refugee camp and home to the Dalai Lama of Tibet. In preparation for my pilgrimage to his mountaintop monastery, I read a book he had written entitled My Land and My People. I learned that Lamo Dhondrub was born in 1935 in a simple Tibetan house made of stone and mud to a family of poor farmers. A search party of exalted monks was directed to this house of the regent of Tibet, who had a vision revealing that this was the place where the next Dalai Lama had been born. When the child was only 2, they came to the house in the guise of travelers seeking refuge. Around one monk's neck hung the beads of the previous Dalai Lama, which the child grabbed, claiming them to be his own. After several visits and consequent tests, the committee concluded it had found the 14th incarnation of Chenrezig. I'm sure I could pronounce that better. The Bodhisattva of compassion, who is believed to be the guide of the Tibetan people spiritually and politically by reincarnating in each generation as the Dalai Lama. The boy was conveyed to the monastery of Lhasa, where he was groomed to be the head of state and spiritual leader of a nation. During the childhood years of his reign, Tibet flourished, but in 1950, the Chinese military invaded, and by 1959, the nation was torn by bitter agitation and violence. On the insistence of his people, who feared for his life, he had to flee from his beloved homeland. The Dalai Lama prayed in the temple of Lord Buddha and offered a shawl of white silk at the altar as a symbol of farewell with the intent to return. With a heavy heart, he shed his monk robes, and in the guise of a soldier, he escaped the palace in the dark of night. Through heavy snow, torrential rains, and bitter cold, he and his party trekked across the rugged mountains of Tibet like fugitives. All the while his heart was breaking at the plight of his people. Struck by disease, exhaustion, and what he referred to as unhappiness deeper than I can express, he crossed the border into India. Gripped by this amazing story of exile, fate, and overcoming hardship, I was compelled to see the place where the spiritual leader of Tibetan Buddhism had made his new home. By the time I arrived in 1971, McLeod Ganja, nestled in the high forested mountains and steep valleys of the Himalayas, looked like a little Tibet. The refugees dressed in their traditional clothes and constructed wooden or brick buildings in the Tibetan style of architecture with dragons and other mythical beings carved or painted in rich colors onto their pillars and arches. Yaks grazed on the hillsides, and a few scattered Western pilgrims found secluded places to meditate. Just as in Tibet, many of the men were Buddhist monks. In the center of the village, the faithful circumambulated a large rectangular area surrounded by prayer wheels, all the while spinning the wheels and chanting the mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum. I knew from my reading that the Tibetan Buddhists believed this mantra invoked the blessings of Chandrazig, the embodiment of compassion, and that all the teachings of Buddha were contained within it. The people in McLeod, it's probably not pronounced McLeod, it's probably something like McLeod. McLeod Ganja were incredibly friendly. Growing with smiles, they welcomed me wherever I went. Despite the hardships they had endured, and despite being refugees in a foreign land, they seemed at peace. I saw no beggars or cheaters among them. Everyone looked content. One family welcomed me into their small home and served me a Tibetan noodle soup called thupka, a traditional tea made with yak's butter and salt. This tea was especially effective at keeping a person warm during the cold Himalayan nights. My heart was so charmed by the people here that I often spent hours just watching them perform their daily chores as they grinned at me from ear to ear. Not far from the Dalai Lama's house stood the temple of a magnificent deity of the Buddha, sitting in the lotus posture. Both the monks and the common people worshipped this golden form of Buddha by offering incense, bells, lamps, and gifts. The puja, or worship ceremony, fascinated me. The monks sat in two lines facing one another with the Buddha in the center. They read from scriptures inscribed on sheaves of unbound parchment leaves. Each leaf was placed on top of the previous as they recited ancient prayers in unison. At auspicious intervals, some monks blew long trumpet-like horns, others rang ritualistic bells, and others struck large gongs with wooden mallets and beat upon huge drums with sticks. As the vibration reached its crescendo, a high priest ceremoniously raised a scepter crafted of intricately molded brass. This dorje was a transceiver of spiritual energy. Decorating the walls of the temple were artworks called tantras, painted in vibrant colors designed to aid enlightenment by depicting history and symbolism of Buddhism. The fragrance of burning oil lamps and sweet incense further lifted my mind as I sat with the monks meditating and chanting mantras. One early morning, while I was meditating in the temple, a tall, elderly lama with a shaved head, maroon robes, and a strand of wooden beads draped around his neck sat beside me. He said that he had been observing me for several days, and asked if I would like to ask any questions. We spent a couple hours of each day together. On one very special afternoon, he invited me to join him for a personal audience with the Dalai Lama. The home of the Dalai Lama rested on a wooden hill surrounded by armed Indian military guards who, because he was under constant threat of death, were stationed for his protection. Passing through security, I was ushered into a room where brightly colored paintings of Buddha and the great bodhisattvas decorated the walls. A beautiful metal deity of Buddha sat on an altar, decorated with flowers, brass lamps, bells, and other items of worship. Cedar-scented incense perfumed the air. Minutes later, a door opened, and the Dalai Lama glanced toward me, eyes sparkling with joy behind his brown-rimmed glasses. His large head was shaven, and he had a square face, low rounded nose, and draped a maroon robe over a bright golden monk's shirt. Beaming a contagious smile, he sprinted across the room to greet me. Laughing aloud, he tightly gripped both my hands and shook them again and again. His eyes twinkled with glee as he spoke in a hearty voice. "You have come from far away. I welcome you." I wondered, was there a picture of the Dalai Lama at the beginning of this book, in the picture section, just to give you some visual? Yes, there's a picture of them together, in fact. Here. You can see the Dalai Lama. And then here's our protagonist, our author. Oops, I moved my camera. We sat on 2 chairs across from one another. With a childlike curiosity, he asked me about my life in America and why I had chosen the life of a sadhu. As I told my story, he listened to every word with rapt attention and concern. Whenever there was a trace of humor in my tale, his whole body shook with laughter, and he clapped his hands together. We spoke for perhaps a half hour when I asked him about the condition of his people in Tibet. A wave of introspection then swept across his face, and tears welled in his eyes. In the silence that now surrounded us, he whispered, "When I was a boy, my nation enjoyed freedom. We were a happy and united people, and our spirituality was flourishing." He paused for a long moment. In sober silence, he lifted up a teapot to offer me a cup of Tibetan tea. I watched as the steaming tea poured from the spout into my cup. The Dalai Lama then returned the teapot to its place and lowered his head in deep thought, as if looking with his mind's eye and feeling in his heart the strife of his people across the Himalayan peaks in Tibet. He added tenderly, "We owe a great debt to India for providing shelter to thousands of our people." And that's something that still goes on today, if I might add, even about 50 years after the story is taking place. I think it's one of the most beautiful things that's happened between countries, is that one country practically took another country in for shelter, since Tibet is now an autonomous region of China. But there's a little Tibet in North India that is where the Dalai Lama, the leader of Tibet, continues to reside, and many of his people. The universal quality of religion, he went on, is compassion to other living beings. To sacrifice for the good of others is true dharma. Seeing the immense sacrifice he extended for his people, his words struck my heart. Meditation, study, and worship, he said, give us the inner strength to live as kind and enlightened beings. His message invoked introspection, and his personality inspired reverence, but his affection had made me feel to be his intimate friend. Smiling, the Dalai Lama graciously placed around my neck a white silken shawl embroidered with Tibetan mantras. "It is a tradition to offer this gift to all my special guests," he said. I felt undeserving of his time and kindness and bowed my head with gratitude. In his company, the virtue of selfless service was becoming more prominent in my mind. He was a person dedicated not only to his spiritual principles, but also to taking on the massive burden of serving the needs of his people who were either in exile or under subjugation. He had endured incomprehensible challenges and obstacles in his apparently hopeless struggle. Tolerating exile and threats, he served his people. In my mind, this is what the shawl represented. It was a special gift. On a forested mountainside, I took up residence in a cave that overlooked a steep valley. There I survived on a food called tsampa, a dry powder made of roasted barley. When water is added, it becomes like porridge. Tibetan monks taught me how to survive on tsampa, as it does not spoil. Having thus simplified my bodily needs, each day I was able to come down to Ganja to learn from the people there. Nights, I returned to my cave. One night as I lay on the rock floor, a gigantic spider crawled along the wall, just inches from my face. It moved its hairy black body slowly, lifting one leg at a time, until it disappeared into a hole about 6 inches from my face. As a small child, I had been terrified of spiders. Any time one entered our house, I would run away from it, crying for my mother to remove it. This cave-dwelling spider was the most ferocious I had ever seen. This is a test from God. I must overcome this fear, I thought. From that night on, the two of us respectfully shared the cave. From where I meditated, I noticed cobras occasionally slithering about in the forest. At times, I had other roommates as well. One night, a huge scorpion fell from the ceiling. Inches from me, it wagged its deadly stinger from side to side. At that moment, my only candle burned its last, and the cave became pitch black. I felt it unwise to move, and so sat motionless in the darkness for a long time. In this state, I recalled Fatherly Kailash Baba and how he taught me the proper consciousness around snakes and scorpions. Breathing slowly, I prayed to God to help me overcome judgment, hatred, and fear. One morning in my cave, my mind drifted across continents and seas to my father in the Chicago suburb of Highland Park. Unsure about my own direction, I was nonetheless feeling that the greatest act of love I could offer him was to write a letter encouraging him to come closer to God in the way that would be most natural for him. With the conviction of youth, not yet knowing my own path, I wrote, "My beloved Father, I would like to ask something very dear of you. Much of the compassion that you have is reflected from my beloved Grandpa Bill." Oh, that's nice. I also have a Grandpa Bill. I believe that the root of his compassion was his all-embracing faith in the Hebrew religion. Grandpa implanted within you the seed of love for Judaism. Please nourish this seed with all sincerity to attain the inspiration of your faith and love for God. I feel that the sacred gift of meditation will give you great insight to reach the depths of Judaism. Hebrew, as well as the other great religions, can bring all of us closer to the Lord. Please carry on the inspiration of your father and forefathers. I believe this is what you truly want. Richard, Ganja, Dharamshala, Himachal Pradesh, India, May 1971. For the most part, on my quest throughout India, I had no companion with whom I could reveal my heart. My associates either spoke no English or were great powerful sages far senior to me in age. At times I was lonely, but I learned to relish loneliness as a way to cultivate my connection to God. Silent prayer became the medium through which I could pour out my thoughts and feelings. The serenity of meditation was my shelter from the restlessness of my mind and world around me. While reassuring my family about my welfare, I was often impelled to use these letters to open my heart, even to recipients who might find my words difficult to comprehend. Sometimes, too, I would reveal my heart onto a small writing pad. One sunny day, while sitting alone in the solitude of my mountain cave, I wrote the following, to no one. In the mind of a hermit, in troubled times, when a man is tired and weary, confused as to where he is going and what he has left to fall behind, he doesn't know whether to cling to or to let go forever of those things that still remain with him. Where to go for one who has forsaken friend and home? What to do for one who wanders alone in the wilderness of his own solitude? Should he break the walls that he has constructed around himself, or should he build them stronger and higher? He pleads, "O Lord, is there a guide who can show me the way to you? Where shall a homeless man reside who believes that home is not in this mortal world?" A reclusive mystic from Egypt lived a short distance from my cave. From time to time, we shared soul-searching talks. He had a dark, smooth complexion, large nose, thin lips, and an untrimmed goatee. His black, introspective eyes were so intense they glazed over as if looking into another world. Outwardly calm, his mind was always working to find another missing piece of wisdom in the puzzle of life. An Egyptian master of the oracle, a tarot-like science sometimes referred to as the Metu Neter, he offered one night to read my destiny. I agreed. Shuffling the deck and lining the cards into precise rows on a powder blue cloth in front of him, he commenced to enact a series of occult rituals from ancient Egypt. Then he guided me through an elaborate meditation that culminated in my selecting a card. Each brightly colored card was about 6 inches tall, 3 inches wide, and illustrated with mystical symbols and mythical figures. For a good half hour he concentrated on the configuration before he finally broke the silence. He slowly rose from his chair, put both hands on the table, and delivered his prophecy. Neither your mind nor intelligence have the power to discern the spiritual path you long to know. Very soon, however, the divine power will direct you. Like a leaf in the wind, you will be led to the path you must follow. It was as if the cards knew everything about me, and he was their mouthpiece. Placing his finger on a particular card, he fell silent. He closed his eyes and whispered, "You must persevere with patience. By a power beyond your own, you will recognize the very one you seek. Believe in this. It is your destiny. Your master will come to you." Thank you. That concludes the second chapter of the third act of the journey home. I welcome any insights that may have arisen whilst we read, and I look forward to continuing the story with you. That concludes our Shravana, portion of our Saṅgha dedicated to listening. Now we can turn our attention to whatever we want to discuss in our hearts and minds, and I welcome all the guests that joined while we were reading. Hello. Let me transition to our Manana scene dedicated to Q&A. Drinking from the universe. Thank you to those who sent a gift whilst we read too. It's very kind of you all. Dear Neon Jello Pack, thank you for your paper grain. Hari Om Tat Sat. The Maniac Mitch, thank you for your heart me. Om Shri Ganapataye Namah. I am Princess Mom. Thank you for your heart me and team bracelet. Om Ganeshaya Namah. Hybrid Jen, thank you for your rose. Your trio of roses, in fact. Radhe Radhe. Dear Dob Darker, thank you for your heart me. Jaya Sitaram. Isabella, thank you for your 6 roses. Radhe Krishna. And Anasek, thank you for your 20 roses too. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hello dear Kalki Ji. Om Namah Shivaya. Have a nice tall glass of everything. That's what I'm drinking. Hello dear Brad. Happy face. Enthusiast, you are wondering what is the correct spelling of Shanti? I will show you. And I see your question too, dear Matthew. I will get to that momentarily. Here you can see my blackboard. So Sanskrit was, as far as we know, originally purely phonetic, and if it had an original script, it was lost. So we've had to borrow other scripts to write down Sanskrit. So the best way to learn Sanskrit is just by hearing it. It's pronounced Shanti. But in Devanagari, which is the most common script to render it, it would look something like this. This is probably the most accurate answer I can give you to how it is spelled. Shanti. English doesn't perfectly map onto the soundscape of Sanskrit, so what we can do is we can create what's called an intermediary language, a transliteration scheme that brings us into some familiarity into the language of English. The most standard is probably the International Alphabet of Sanskrit Transliteration. And in English, it looks like this. So there's three special things to point out. There's this accent on top of the S. There's this line on top of the A. And then there's this dot underneath the H. The accent on top of the S tells us that it's not a typical S sound in English. In fact, it is equivalent to the SH sound that is in English. So you can think of that letter as standing for the SH sound, the sh, the palatal sibilant in English. Sh, 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 sh. Secondly, Sanskrit has precise vowel lengths. There's vowels that are 1 unit in length, and there's vowels that are 2 units in length. This A with a line over it is a vowel with 2 units in length. So you can think of that as kind of like a double A in English. Sha. You can feel 2 beats. Sha. Ah. And it would be half the length of the other vowel. E. E. Shanti. Finally, this is not an H at all, actually. This is just an exhale. It's called a visarga. It's not a consonant and it's not a vowel. It's something else. And that's what these 2 dots are. That is the visarga. And it's a way that the breath plays a role in the language of Sanskrit. So you exhale at the end of saying this word, which means peace. Shanti. Shanti. That at the end. It's a breathy echo of the vowel before it. Shanti. So, to summarize, there is no official way to spell any Sanskrit word because it was originally purely an oral transmission. But a writing system did eventually develop in India, and the closest thing we have to a script for Sanskrit is the Devanagari script that you see above. And the soundscape doesn't perfectly map onto English sounds or Latin letters, so we have to come up with an intermediary called the International Alphabet of Sanskrit Transliteration, and it would be rendered like that. The S with the accent is an SH sound, the A with a line over it is a double length A, and then that H with a dot is an exhale. We can talk about so many little details about Sanskrit. It's truly an amazing language. But I hope that answers your question, dear enthusiast. Matthew, thank you for your patience. You had a question asked around the same time. Is there significance to small localized muscle spasms and feeling hot while meditating? I am sure that you could look for spiritual symbolism. However, I would prioritize a medical perspective in such a circumstance. And if you need to see a doctor, maybe a neurologist, that could be helpful. But you are going to have a lot of energetic sensations while meditating, and so it's not necessarily something to be worried about, but I'd always double check with a healthcare provider. Luke, you were wondering if I'm a Hare Krishna. No, I'm not associated with ISKCON, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. However, we are reading a book from one of its members, and that's The Journey Home. But you can consider the space to be an interfaith community of many different spiritual traditions. I tend to draw primarily from the yogic path of ancient India, but I make room for all religions. Dear Crossfires, you ask, guess how many galaxies make up the Milky Way? Well, it depends what you mean by this question exactly, because I was under the impression that our galaxy was named the Milky Way. So in that case, one. But I know that there's many different satellite galaxies as well. I don't know how many. Maybe you could tell me. And we have a whole bunch of other galaxies in the Virgo supercluster as part of Laniakea. It's truly mind-blowing to think about the scale of everything. Hello, dear Jackie. Dear Dancing Spirit, you wonder how I learned Sanskrit? I use the internet. There's so much knowledge there. But a lot of Sanskrit actually teaches itself, which sounds weird to say, but you just have to kind of get started, and then you start picking up on patterns that, you know, our ancestors left behind, and you follow that trail and you go, wow, yeah, this is how language is meant to be. I'm sure you could do the same with many other ancient languages. Dear Jackie, you ask, how would you be understood because you can't roll your R's? Well, you haven't practiced until you got it yet. No one can roll their R's until they practice it. Obviously, children have a great ability to learn languages quickly, and so it makes it comparatively harder as adults to learn new phonetics. But I was not one of those children that could roll my R's. I only started rolling my R's when I started learning Sanskrit, and it took me a while to get it down. But would you be mutually intelligible even if you didn't roll your R's? Yes. And in fact, in modern Indian languages, you don't roll your R's as much as they did in Vedic times. It's become something more of an alveolar tap, which is like a roll, but just one roll. But anyway, there's no words for you to be confused by, as if there are variants of the words that would depend on if you could roll them or not. People would still understand you. Dear Kalkiji, you want to know more about Dattatreya? Me too. I don't know much about Dattatreya other than that, if I'm correct, that is the form of the divine, of the Trimurti, all together as one, of Shiva, the dissolver of the universe, Vishnu, the maintainer of the universe, and Brahma, the creator of the universe, all together as one divine being. And farewell, dear enthusiast. Thank you, Hybrid Jen, for the 11 roses you sent. Om Hrim Namah Shakti Shivaya. Like Megazord shares Shri Hasya Chitrakara. Dear Kalkiji, thank you for your rose. Om Bharam Bhairvaya Namo Namah. And Danjo, thank you for your ice cream cone and donut. Sweet treats from a sweet soul, thank you. Om Am Saraswatyai Namah. Dear Kalki ji, you can't read Sanskrit, but you can read Hindi. Well, they are very close. They do commonly share Devanagari as a script. Hindi has kind of a different relationship with the script, though, because it tends to treat their vowels a little differently, and that actually leads to different spelling. So even though Hindi is very much a Sanskritized language in many ways, their soundscape differs from Sanskrit too, so yeah. But they're definitely more similar than probably any other language, at least on Duolingo. Duolingo is a great way to learn the Devanagari script. Even though it doesn't have Sanskrit, it does have Hindi, which shares that writing system. I love that observation, I am Princess Mom. That is what makes Hinduism so beautiful. It has always been diverse, inclusive, and progressive. I feel very comfortable drawing from it in an interfaith place. Rachel, you're wondering about Vedanta. Vedanta is one of the main schools of Indian philosophy. Indeed. Coming from Veda, which means knowledge, referred to the scriptures, and Anta, which means end of. So Vedanta is the end of knowledge. What does that mean? Meaning the ultimate knowledge, the culminating knowledge. A tradition that philosophically analyzes the Vedas, the early revelations of India, North India, and comes to a deep understanding. Dear Sean, you were wondering if I can tell you what time of day I usually go live. I am not consistent with it, so I apologize, but I did go live today at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, thereabout, but I tried to go live earlier than that. Mubi, you had asked if I believe there was only one language, and that is closest to Sanskrit today. Well, I can give you the scholarly perspective, and then the perspective from within Sanskrit-speaking tradition. The scholarly perspective is that there were languages that came before Sanskrit, but actually we're not aware of many. Sanskrit, particularly the Sanskrit of the Vedas, is one of the oldest definitively known languages spoken. It might have even been spoken in the Indus Valley civilization or an early form. This is all the scholarly perspective. But theoretically, there was an even older language than Sanskrit, and that's Proto-Indo-European, and then it evolved into Sanskrit as it met with the Proto-Dravidian languages of South India. Some scholars have theorized that there is even a proto-world language that was spoken tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of years ago. It's all very hypothetical. We can only go so many thousands of years back because, well, writing systems didn't develop until only a little more than a few thousand years ago. But humans have definitely been speaking to each other for thousands and thousands and thousands of years before that. So it's hard to know. That's the scholarly perspective. the perspective of those that spoke Sanskrit is that it is a divinely revealed language. And I have to admit that learning Sanskrit, it does not feel human. If it was human, I cannot even begin to comprehend how such a phonetically and grammatically precise system was standardized across an ancient world. It either speaks to a very deep and great spiritual civilization at least, or something that linguists would probably have to become a little more spiritual for to understand where it comes from. All we really know about Sanskrit is that it was the language of the Vedas. That is the earliest known form of it, Vedic Sanskrit, and the Vedas are apparently divine revelation, and it is the language that the divine spoke through humanity in India. Thank you, Kalki Ji, for your rose, your pair of roses. Bhurvasva tatsaviturvarenyam bhargo devasya dhimahi dhiyo yonah prachodayat. Hello, dear Marcy. Is that Macy? It is Macy. Thank you for your rose, Macy. Om Mani Padme Hum. And thank you, Tan Hao Yu, for your heart me. Om Kamalir Mahakalikai Namah. Hello, dear Edward the Runner. Kalki Ji, you're wondering what I know about the Baul. What are they about? I don't know. I actually haven't heard this word before. The Baul. B-A-U-L. And thank you, Mima. Crossfires, you share you experienced the sensory deprivation tank for the first time. Have I ever done one? I have, yeah. It was very revealing of the tension I hold in my body. But I see you ask that question for everyone. Marcy, you have a baked potato Saṅgha snack. Delicious. And Shrihasya Chitrakare, you share your dog and you found a whole potato in the snow today. A snow potato? Where did that come from? What that means, you have no idea. What does a potato represent? Well, in our culture, it represents couch potatoes. That's the opposite of a hot potato, isn't it, too? You found a cold potato. And if a hot potato is something that you can only hold on to for so long, a cold potato is something that you can much easierly hold on to. So, according to that symbolism, perhaps this is to signal to you that something in your life is coming in which, whereas before it might be difficult to hold on to this thing, now you will much more easily find yourself grasping it. Dear Lauren, you pulled an oracle card for me for fun. It's called the Seer. Snake wrapped around the seer's neck. Does that imagery speak to me? Om Namah Shivaya. You know, it's the day of the seer who has a snake around his neck. Mahashivaratri. We will be doing a mantra for him later. Marcy, you share that you can make your Play-Doh like 8 times better by adding a few drops of lotion. It keeps your hands soft and moisturized. I didn't know I needed this fact, dear Marcy, but I'm grateful for it. Thank you. I was a big fan of Play-Doh as a kid, and ate probably too much of it. Hello, dear Lakonin. Dear Bob, you share that you still derive some of your words from Sanskrit there in Indonesia. I love that. And speaking of that, in English, the word that derives from Sanskrit too. Many words in English do. That comes from the Sanskrit word tat. Tat became that. And what does tat mean? It means that. It still means the same thing. It's the sound has changed. Tat. That. You are learning the language and it makes you cry at times because of its beauty. It is deeply beautiful. Namaste, dear Fem. Pick a color, shares Marcy. That's what they asked me when I got my feet done. And I chose a sparkly orange, if you can see that. I still got them because I chose gels that probably won't go away for a while. Nini, you're wondering if I know balut in the Philippines? I'm sorry, I don't quite know. But perhaps you could tell me. Mirna, you share it snowed on coastal cities today in Beirut. It's 1 degree outside. Wow. That doesn't sound common, I would imagine. Snow in the Middle East? Maybe, I don't know. Are my eyes purple? Asks Ivy. I think the purple of the background is making them seem a lot more purple. But I do get my blue eyes from my mother. Dear Chris, you share for Maha Shivaratri. You are going to do Jagaram, staying awake at night tomorrow. That is a common practice. I don't know if I'm going to do it unless Shiva keeps me up. I have to be careful for my sleep hygiene, but it is a wonderful practice that I encourage people to do if they are interested. And thank you, Oren, for your heart me and team bracelet. Om Namo Bhagavate Rudraya. You still love Play-Doh, Jackie? That makes me happy to hear. I like when we as adults can have time to bring out our inner child. And hello, dear MJ. Isabella, you're not gonna lie. When I said Play-Doh, you thought for sure I was talking about Plato, the philosopher. And when I said I ate a little bit too much of Plato in my life, I was talking about I consumed too much of his philosophy. Now I'm just one foot in the Platonic world and the other foot in the world of imperfect corporeal forms. Lauren, you ask, isn't avatar a Sanskrit word? It is indeed. Sanskrit pronunciation would be avatara, which literally means descension. That which descends. Yeah. If you wanted to say, I descend, you'd say, avatarami. If you wanted to say, he or she descends, you'd say, avatarati. For example. And the Howl Frank didn't even know that they needed lotion in their Play-Doh until they stopped by. Balut is chicken embryos. I see, yes. I understand that it is a cuisine in parts of the world. Thank you, Deneen, for your heart meat. Bhram Hanumate Namah. What is ascension in Sanskrit? Ask Ruri. Well, descension is avatara. That's a good question. I'm going to ask ChatGPT because they actually have been trained on Sanskrit for whatever reason. Yeah, you're right, Stevie G. I do stay up all night sometimes anyway. In Sanskrit, the term for ascension, that which rises or ascends, would be urdhva. U-R-D-H-V-A, which means upward or higher. For spiritual or cosmic context, you could also use urdhva gamana, meaning the act of going upward, rising. Urdhva. I have heard that word before. I didn't know what it meant though. Thank you, dear Jackie, for your naughty chicken. Bok, bok, bok. Om Namah Pashupati Nataya. Thank you, Kalki Ji, for your heart me. Om Im Namo Vishnave. Your oldest son and you pulled an all-nighter Saturday night. Shares hybrid gem. I imagine that was a very bonding moment for you both. Dear Chris, you ask, what do I do for work? I don't do anything for work. What I do is be very grateful for the fact that the donations I get here, which are never expected nor guaranteed, are enough to support me at this moment. I thank you for that. I haven't switched to DeepSeek, asked Myrna. No, I don't find DeepSeek is as well versed on spiritual topics as the models from OpenAI are. And I think that makes sense. It serves slightly different purposes because I know that OpenAI wants to push the borders of computational philosophy. And there's a lot of philosophical texts, many of them in Sanskrit, that the GPT models were trained on. And to be fair, I noticed that the DeepSeek models are also good on that, but I find the GPT models are a little more versed in Sanskrit, which I appreciate. But that was just from very small and minor comparisons. I'm sure it's a little more nuanced than that, but that's my impression thus far. Thank you, Amaris. Amaris, for your heart mate. Om Kamlyar Mahangalikai Namah. And dear Deneen, thank you for your friendship, Nicholas. Om Kang Namah. No, sorry. Om Kang Jahnavyai Namah. Making sure I get my Bija mantras correct. Kalki Ji, you share, you got a sitar and you just got it in tune. The thing is awesome. I love that. Oh, I love sitars. Mubi, you share, Speaking of Avatar, you think they're making a sequel of the animation. Oh, lovely. That's a very spiritual children's show, which I learned a lot from, to be honest. Good writers. Oren, you share you're trying to ascend to your divine purpose as the best you can be. I believe this is possible for you, dear Oren. We often think about the divine as something to ascend into, and that's true from our lower selves perspective. Another perspective that can complement that is from the perspective of the higher self. We don't have anywhere to ascend, but actually places to descend into. That the higher self comes into our mind and body. Instead of feeling like we're working up to the infinite, let the infinite come down through this body and mind. That can be helpful too. Thank you, dear Edward, for your heart me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Thank you, Jackie, for your tiny, tiny yippee. Hi, Bridgen, you share you and your son have difficulty sleeping when you stay at a hotel. It's too unfamiliar. That makes sense, yeah. What you can do is, if you are traveling, you can bring some things from your bedroom that make it feel like home. Even a blanket or a sheet or even the cover of a pillow can help you get to sleep. Bring home wherever you go. Hello, dear Jay. I'm grateful to have you here, Oren. Lakon, and you ask if I live in a rural area or which kind. I think it's difficult to describe where I live. I live near lots of farms, but I'm only a 15-minute drive from the city center. 20-minute drive maybe. I got oceans all around us. That's the lovely thing about living on an island, Vancouver Island, is that there's just so much variety in a little time that I could walk from a beach to a forest to a field to a mountain all within an hour, or from a city to a town to a village. I've got everything in a country all within only so many square kilometers. So a little bit of everything all of the time. Dear Billy, you share your son was on the treadmill and you thought you saw him fall. You asked, did you fall? He said, no, it was an educated slip. I love your son, Billy. Goran, you're wondering, what was the show I was talking about? I think you heard me mention Avatar, The Last Airbender. Stevie G, I see some angry emojis in chat. Seems like maybe your comments aren't coming through, I am assuming. If you want to share if you want to send me a message on Instagram, maybe, if you want, I can open that if you have something that isn't coming through here. Kalkiji, you ask if I have polar bears, or are they more up north? I live in one of the actually the only tropical place in Canada. Some people call it the Hawaii of Canada. It's technically a subtropical biome. So we got palm trees here, no polar bears, although occasionally a bear from the mainland will island hop all the way to Vancouver Island, and then they have to be helicoptered back Because the bear will figure out how to swim here, but not know how to swim back. So we have to. You might see a bear in a harness, just hovering over the ocean, being returned all the way back to their home. It's a great mental image. Oh, how interesting, dear Howl. Or Howie, sorry. Dear TYVE, you ask, do I think about existence? Do I think about existence? Well, I'm not sure there's anything else to think about, to be honest. And what ideas do I have about it? What ideas do I have about existence? Well, I don't think I have ideas about anything other than existence. All my ideas are based on my own existence here. As a whole, I think it's a miracle that it's come into being. It's amazing that here we are having a conscious, subjective experience of a universe that is vast, seemingly infinite, at least bigger than anything we can comprehend. And I'm grateful to be here. I don't know what it all means in the grand scheme of things, but I'm happy to be a part of it. In fact, I feel a little bit honored to be a part of it, because the universe didn't have to exist, and it didn't have to have me in it either, but yet it does, and here I am. So to the universe, I say thank you. Thank you, universe, for having me here. Thank you, dear Jared, for your heart me. How are you, my friend? And Hari Om Tat Sat. Hybrid Jen, thank you for your star. Om Kali Maha Kali Kalike Parameshwari Sarvanandakare Devi Narayani Namostute. Hello, dear Ingrid. You love Aang and Avatar, dear Or. Me too. I never actually watched it when I was a kid, but I did when I was a young adult, only a few years ago, and I felt like a kid watching it. Hello, Danny. Lacon, and you ask, but isn't there cold all around Canada? In general, Canada is a pretty cold place to be, but being the second largest country, there's a huge variation in latitudes, and I am part of one of the most southern parts, if not the most southern part of Canada. I'm not quite sure, and so it's not as cold. There's no snow where I am right now, and it's definitely above freezing. Now, it's not exactly t-shirt and shorts weather, but I'm sure you'll find many Canadians wearing t-shirts and shorts as their clothing where I live anyway. I still wear flip-flops when I go out of the house. Lots of different First Nations here. Yes. I'm grateful to live alongside the West Saanich people and the many different Coast Salish indigenous populations. I actually live really close to a reserve, and sometimes I can hear them doing powwows, which is really lovely. They're drum circles, they're chanting. I really support their spiritual tradition. Thank you, MJ, for your flower. Om Kang Namah Prajapataye. And Kalkiji, thank you for your rose. Om Som Suryaya Namah. Dear Hihi, you sure you had something to say about my dream I talked about the other day? Uh-oh. Yes. Mm-hmm. Do you have an interpretation for me? Or are you wondering if I am willing to remind you the name of the squirrel meditation you had the privilege of joining me for? You were so You're so politely spoken, dear Oren. I was about to say, politely poken. The squirrel meditation is uploaded on my Yamsox Live's YouTube channel. It was originally from the BAPS, the Swami Narayan Sanstha. It was produced in honor of their spiritual master that departed from their body, Pramukh Swami Maharaj, for his centennial birth celebrations. I'm sure if you looked up squirrels, the squirrels of Rama, Rama, R-A-M-A, the squirrels of Rama. Dear Jeff, you express an opening for help as your daughter passed away 6 months ago and you're struggling. You are saddled with the deepest sorrow. Saddled is a good word. I don't know if that was a typo of saddened, but anyway, I get your message. Thank you for sharing that, dear Jeff. I hope to offer some peace to you in this space, this community, and my messages. If you find the link tree in my bio, there's an Instagram account, Telegram, WhatsApp. You can always message me, anyone, for free. I'm so sorry to hear that you lost your daughter. I mean, that's one of the worst things that a parent could ever go through. I will certainly pray for you and your daughter, dear Jeff. And if it's any condolence, consolation, please know that you haven't truly lost anyone. We absolutely lose a physical connection, and that is completely valid to grieve over. But just as the miracle of your daughter coming from her mother was something to be amazed by, I think you can also be amazed by how, if life can come from a body, it can return back into one in other ways. And I don't even mean that in a context of reincarnation necessarily, but in the context of your heart, that you carry your daughter with you in your heart. Everyone that your daughter had made an impression on, that impression carries her essence, her soul, if you will. And I hope you open up to that inside you. I wish you lots of peace. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Dearest Jackie, you're wondering if there's a limit on reincarnating back in time, that time only goes forward. You know, there's an interesting poem that challenges that notion. The poem is called The Egg by Andrew Weir. Maybe some of you have watched the animation about that on YouTube by Kurzgesagt. I think if you are open enough to see the possibility of reincarnation, then we can be open to see the ways in which time might also not be so linear. If there's already a kind of openness to explore those new perspectives. I will say in general that, yeah, as far as we know, physics is concerned, time seems to flow pretty much in a straight line, or maybe a little bit of a wiggly line based on Einstein's theory of relativity. And maybe in extreme circumstances that wibbly wobbliness can loop back in on itself, like in the case of black holes and wormholes and white holes and cyclical cosmology of universes begetting universes. I think anything is possible when you get that kind of cosmic. But it's all to do with our karmas, with our actions, what they're leading to. For most people, I think, if reincarnation exists, then it would make sense that they would want to be a part of the generation that they were going to support. That if you were building towards a brighter future, that you would probably continue where you left off around the same time. But I think you could have some other circumstances arise, certainly. That maybe someone feels like they have a duty to their ancestors, so they go back in time for their next life, and maybe they come back in the life after that. I don't fully know. No one truly knows. We have to resort to spiritual scriptures and spiritual teachers that claim to have such knowledge. One of the most important verses on reincarnation is the 6th verse from the 8th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, which I can read to you. This is an ancient scripture, and I've read this verse many times because in this single verse you can figure out the nature of all aspects of reincarnation. That verse is Yam yang vapi smaram bhavang dhyajatyante kalevaram tam tam me vaiti kaunteya sada tadbhava bhavitah. Yam yam means whatever, vapi means at all, smaram remembering, bhavam nature, tyajati gives up, ante at the end, kalevaram this body, tam tam similar, eva certainly, eti gets, kaunteya O son of Kunti. That's who Krishna, the speaker, was speaking to. Sada, always, tat, that, bhava, state of being, bhavita, remembering. Obviously, Sanskrit has a different grammar than English, although it literally translates to whatever at all remembering nature gives up at the end, this body, similar certainly gets, O son of Kunti, always that state of being, remembering. Rearranging into English, that's whatever state of being one remembers in the end, O Kaunteya, O son of Kunti, that state they will always attain. You can think of it, on Earth, there's all these forces moving around, acting on us. But as soon as something gets sent into space, now in that vacuum, it just follows its geodesic based on its final trajectory after leaving Earth. So too, when we leave this life, this world, we continue along our final trajectory. And what defines our trajectory in life? our thoughts, our mind. What we keep in mind sets up our trajectory in life. So, what our final thoughts are our trajectory, our angle of departure into the hereafter. And I think that's an appreciable insight. So for most people who experience time linearly, I imagine that their mindset is going to be set up in such a way that their trajectory is one that goes into the very next generation that they preceded. But if you had a very abstract mind, and the state of being you remembered in the end was a little more abstract than just thinking about time in terms of how the world is going to continue where you left, but you were thinking about your duties to your ancestors, perhaps. Maybe you were thinking about the Roman Empire, as many guys do. Maybe you'd go back. Am I back? I think my voice might be back. My computer randomly turned off. I guess it wasn't fully plugged in, but now it is. Alright, give me one moment to connect my camera back. Thank you for your patience. Now it's a podcast. You can just listen. Oh, here we are. My camera is successfully back, but I guess I just have to maybe try unconnecting the source on TikTok and connecting it back again. Because I think TikTok gave up on my camera. TikTok detected no camera and went, well, geez, I'm giving up on it. Here we are. But my computer still thinks that it's not plugged in. It might turn off again. Oh, well, my camera turned off. It's funny. Okay. Here we are. Now making sure my computer actually has power. Yes. Charging. Okay. I think all of that's resolved now, but now I've lost my voice. One thing after another. Such is the case of life. However, my computer still thinks it's not getting enough power. I apologize for the disruption, everyone. We'll see what happens. But thanks to those who sent a gift since the last time I expressed my gratitude. Oh. Dear Moonflower, thank you for the heart may you sent. Om Ganapataye Namah. Thank you, dear Kalkiji, for another rose. Om Som Somaya Namah. And Dancing Aurora Borealis, Thank you for your trio of roses. Om Aim Saraswatyai Namah. Dear Kalkiji, you're wondering if I've dabbled in the Hanuman Chalisa. You love the Chalisa. We did listen to a version of it from Krishna Das a few weeks ago for our meditation. That was nice. Thank you, Tommy Scotland, for your heart me. Namo Maya Shakdai. I don't know if you can hear my computer freaking out. That is, battery's low. I think its battery is dropping slowly. I think my laptop might be coming to the end of life. I don't know. I've had it for many years now and it's served me well. Maybe it's finally to the point where it can't charge faster than it runs. Yeah, I will double check the outlet. It's right next to me, I can see it. It looks fully plugged in, but anyway. We might have to do a budget live stream with resources that are less demanding on my system. Task Manager, what's using up the most CPU? Google Chrome. Can you hear me? Am I still here? So my computer is smoking. There's smoke coming from my laptop. So I think it's while somehow miraculously the connection is still there, I'm going to say goodbye for now. I'm going to figure it out. Yeah, I'm going to open a window because it's not healthy to breathe in. Thank you everyone for being part of this live stream. I am sorry to leave on such short notice, but I think it's probably best to not keep this laptop running. But I thought you guys deserved to have a goodbye, I guess. I'll just end with the mantra. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Mritangamaya Om Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. Lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to the light, from death to deathlessness. Om. May there be peace in us, may there be peace in our environment, and may there be peace in the forces that act on us. And may there be peace in the digital circuitry of my laptop. I will figure this out. Don't you worry. Anyway, if I can get a solution up and running, I will do so. Maybe we'll see how long it takes. I don't know what is needed, but I do have a desktop that I can stream from and a phone. So I will explore my options. Until later, until next time, everyone. May you all have a beautiful rest of your present moment. Namaste.